Hello, welcome to my channel. I'm your friendly neighborhood Holy Bible explainer. We are reading Deuteronomy 15. This section is titled, The Year for Canceling Debts. So remember, debt is like a amount of money that you owe. At the end of every 7 years, you must cancel debts. Debts. This is how it is to be done. Alright, this is a long time ago. Every creditor shall cancel any loan they have made to a fellow Israelite. They shall not require payment from anyone among their own people, because the Lord's time for canceling debts has been proclaimed. You may require payment from a foreigner, but you must cancel any debt your fellow Israelite owes you. However, there need be no poor people among you, for in the land the Lord your God is giving you to possess as your inheritance, he will richly bless you. If only you fully obey the Lord your God and are careful to follow all these commands I am giving you today. For the Lord your God will bless you as he has promised, and you will lend to many nations, but will borrow from none. You will rule over many nations, but none will rule over you. If anyone is poor among your fellow Israelites in any of the towns of the land the Lord your God is giving you, do not be hard-hearted or tight-fisted toward them. Rather be open-handed and freely lend them whatever they need. Be careful not to harbor this wicked thought. The 7th year, the year for canceling debts, is near, so that you do not show ill will toward the needy among your fellow Israelites and give them nothing. They may then appeal to the Lord against you, and you will be found guilty of sin. Give generously to them, and do so without a grudging heart. Then because of this, the Lord your God will bless you in all your work, and in everything you put your hand to. There will always be poor people in the land. Therefore I command you to be open-handed toward your fellow Israelites who are poor and needy in your land. The next section is titled Freeing Servants. If any of your people, Hebrew men or women, sell themselves to you and serve you 6 years, in the 7th year you must let them go free. And when you release them, do not send them away empty-handed. Supply them liberally from your flock, your threshing floor, and your winepress. Give to them as the Lord your God has blessed you. Remember that you were slaves in Egypt, and the Lord your God redeemed you. That is why I give you this command today. But if your servant says to you, I do not want to leave you, because he loves you and your family is well off with you, then take an awl and push it through his earlobe into the door, and he will become your servant for life. Do the same for your female servant. Do not consider it a hardship to set your servant free, because their service to you these 6 years has been worth twice as much as that of a hired hand, and the Lord your God will bless you in everything you do. I wondered what an owl through his earlobe into the door is. I still don't know. The next section is titled The Firstborn Animals. Set apart for the Lord your God every firstborn male of your herds and flocks. Do not put the firstborn of your cows to work, and do not shear the firstborn of your sheep. Each year you and your family are to eat them in the presence of the Lord your God, at the place he will choose. If an animal has a defect, is lame or blind, or has any serious flaw, you must not sacrifice it to the Lord your God. You are to eat it in your own towns. Both the ceremonially unclean and the clean may eat it, as if it were gazelle or deer. But you must not eat the blood. Pour it out on the ground like water. Let's go to Deuteronomy 16. Deuteronomy 16. This section is titled The Passover. Observe the month of Aviv and celebrate the Passover of the Lord your God, because in the month of Aviv he brought you out of Egypt by night. Sacrifice as the Passover to the Lord your God an animal from your flock or herd, at the place the Lord will choose as a dwelling for his name. Do not eat it with bread made with yeast, but for 7 days eat unleavened bread, the bread of affliction. So bread made without yeast is the bread of affliction. It's the bread of suffering. So bread without yeast is lousy, or I use that word a lot, but it's not as good, you know. Bread with a lot of butter in it and yeast, it's delicious. Because you left Egypt in haste, so that all the days of your life you may remember the time of your departure from Egypt, let no yeast be found in your possession in all your land for 7 days. Do not let any of the meat you sacrifice on the evening of the first day remain until morning. You must not sacrifice the Passover in any town the Lord your God gives you, except in the place he will choose as a dwelling for his name. There you must sacrifice the Passover in the evening when the sun goes down, on the anniversary of your departure from Egypt. Roast it and eat it at the place the Lord your God will choose. Then in the morning return to your tents. Excuse me. I love coffee. I have a joke. My friend Quan told me this joke. Some people don't like coffee, but he said, I hope I could deliver his joke well. He said, you know, in high school, I didn't like coffee. And then when I went to college, I started to drink coffee because I had to study a lot and there's a lot of homework. And then by junior or senior year, I love coffee. So, you're supposed to take the Passover meat. It's supposed to be a lamb, but now God is saying it could be also from the herd. If you want to eat beef, it's okay. Because when they left, it was lamb. When they left Egypt, they had to take a lamb and eat it. For 6 days eat unleavened bread, and on the seventh day hold an assembly to the Lord your God, and do no work. So on the seventh day, have something like a church service, and you cannot work on that day. You can't go to your job. The next section is called the Festival of Weeks. Remember, this is a long time ago. Things were different. Count off 7 weeks from the time you begin to put the sickle to the standing grain. So from the time they start to reap, like cut grain, to harvest grain. Grain is the most obvious example is wheat. Wheat grows really tall. It's like grass. And then on the top of that grass, there's all these. It looks like this, but they're like little. It looks like rice. If you because when you think of wheat, you think bread, but everyone knows what rice looks like. But think of like grass, and then on the top of that grass, there are like these little things that have shells, like husks on them. They're like little pieces of rice with husks, and then there's many of them. Like there's the grass, and at the top of the long wheat stalk, there's all these little things. It's grain. So when it grows, and the farmer can tell, okay, it's time to cut it and harvest those things. They really want those little grains like rice, but it's wheat grains, for example. Then celebrate the Festival of Weeks to the Lord your God by giving a freewill offering in proportion to the blessings the Lord your God has given you. And rejoice before the Lord your God at the place he will choose as a dwelling for his name. You, your sons and daughters, your male and female servants, those are like your people, the Levites in your towns, and the foreigners, the fatherless, and the widows living among you. Remember that you were slaves in Egypt, and follow carefully these decrees. The next section is titled The Festival of Tabernacles. So every year we have Thanksgiving, Christmas, and Easter Sunday. I think that a long time ago, the Israelites, they had the Passover, the Festival of Weeks, and the Festival of Tabernacles. So celebrate tabernacles for 7 days after you have gathered the produce of your threshing floor and your wine press. So it's more grain and grapes. Be joyful at your festival. You, your sons and daughters, your male and female servants, and the Levites, the foreigners, the fatherless, and the widows who live in your towns. For 7 days celebrate the festival to the Lord your God at the place the Lord will choose. For the Lord your God will bless you in all your harvest and in all the work of your hands, and your joy will be complete. Three times a year, all your men must appear. These 3 times. These 3 times a year, we're talking about these 3 festivals. All your men must appear, before the Lord your God at the place he will choose, at the festival of unleavened bread, the festival of weeks, and the festival of tabernacles. No one should appear before the Lord empty-handed. So I I believe that God is not saying that you have to bring a sacrifice. That's true if you could afford it. But um, I believe that everyone who comes to the festival can, eat. No one who comes to the festival should have nothing in their hands to eat, because these festivals, they sacrifice so much meat. It was like they were like meat fests, and you have to remember that God is saying that you can't forget about the Levites, the foreigners, the fatherless, the widows. They can all come and eat. Because some of the wealthier people, in proportion to how God blessed them, they would have to bring so much grain and so much wine, so much oil, so many animals. And if you read carefully later, spoiler alert, on your own, I think the tithe went through some kind of rotation. For the first 2 years, it's supposed to be eaten and shared. And then in the third year, I'm not being, that precise. In the third year, then you give it, you still eat, everyone gets to eat at these festivals. But you probably eat less, or the rich people have to bring a little more. And then after the festival, you always give it to a Levite. They are priestly people. And then they will, you just let them redistribute it for free for the poorer people. And so everyone gets to eat. And each of you must bring a gift in proportion to the way the Lord your God has blessed you. So again, the really richies, they have to bring a lot of food to these festivals. Or you have to watch my earlier videos. If they're coming from far away, they could have exchanged some of it for silver. The next section is titled Judges. Appoint judges and officials for each of your tribes in every town the Lord your God is giving you, and they shall judge the people fairly. Do not pervert justice or show partiality. Do not accept a bribe, for a bribe blinds the eyes of the wise and twists the words of the innocent. Follow justice and justice alone, so that you may live and possess the land the Lord your God is giving you. The last section is called Worshipping Other Gods. Do not set up any wooden Asherah pole beside the altar you build to the Lord your God, and do not erect a sacred stone, for these the Lord your God hates. So he finds those detestable. Let's go to Deuteronomy 17. Deuteronomy 17. Do not sacrifice to the Lord your God an ox or a sheep that has any defect or flaw in it, for that would be detestable to him. If a man or woman living among you in one of the towns the Lord gives you is found doing evil in the eyes of the Lord your God, in violation of his covenant, and contrary to my command, has worshipped other gods, bowing down to them or to the sun, or the moon, or the stars in the sky, and this has been brought to your attention, then you must investigate it thoroughly. If it is true and it has been proved that this detestable thing has been done in Israel, take the man or woman who has done this evil deed to your city gate and stone that person to death. On the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses, a person is to be put to death, but no one is to be put to death on the testimony of only one witness. The hands of the witnesses must be the first in putting that person to death, and then the hands of all the people. You must purge the evil from among you. The next section is titled Law Courts. If cases come before your courts that are too difficult for you to judge, whether bloodshed, lawsuits, or assaults, take them to the place the Lord your God will choose. Go to the Levitical priests. Go to the Levitical priests and to the judge who is in office at that time. Inquire of them, and they will give you the verdict. You must act according to the decisions they give you at the place the Lord will choose. Be careful to do everything they instruct you to do. Act according to whatever they teach you and the decisions they give you. Do not turn aside from what they tell you, to the right or to the left. Anyone who shows contempt for the judge or for the priest who stands ministering there to the Lord your God is to be put to death. You must purge the evil from Israel. All the people will hear and be afraid and will not be contemptuous again. The next section is called The King. When you enter the land the Lord your God is giving you, and have taken possession of it, and settled in it, and you say, let us set a king over us like all the nations around us. Be sure to appoint over you a king the Lord your God chooses. He must be from among your fellow Israelites. Do not place a foreigner over you, one who is not an Israelite. The king, moreover, must not acquire great numbers of horses for himself, or make the people return to Egypt to get more of them. For the Lord has told you, you are not to go back that way again. He must not take many wives, or his heart will be led astray. He must not accumulate large amounts of silver and gold. Okay, so let's try to remember that. The king cannot have a lot of horses. That's like cars, And the king cannot have too many wives. It's not many wives. This is a long time ago, so he can't have too many wives. But his heart will be led astray. Is he can't have too many of these wives that believe in other gods. And he cannot have too much silver and gold. When he takes the throne of his kingdom, he is to write for himself on a scroll a copy of this law. taken from that of the Levitical priests. So, the king has to be a righteous king, so to speak. He has to have a copy of the Ten Commandments. It is to be with him, and he is to read it all the days of his life, so that he may learn to revere the Lord his God and follow carefully all the words of this law and these decrees, and not consider himself better than his fellow Israelites, and turn from the law to the right or to the left. So he too has to follow these laws. Then he and his descendants will reign a long time over his kingdom in Israel. Let's go to Deuteronomy 18. Deuteronomy 18 is titled Offerings for Priests and Levites. The Levitical priests, indeed, the whole tribe of Levi or Levi, are to have no allotment or inheritance with Israel, so they don't get land. They shall live on the food offerings presented to the Lord, for that is their inheritance. They shall have no inheritance among their fellow Israelites. The Lord is their inheritance, as he promised them. This is the share due the priests from the people who sacrifice a bull or a sheep, the shoulder, the internal organs, and the meat from the head. You are to give them the first fruits of your grain, new wine and olive oil, and the first wool from the shearing of your sheep. For the Lord your God has chosen them and their descendants out of all your tribes to stand and minister in the Lord's name always. If a Levite moves from one of your towns anywhere in Israel where he is living, and comes in all earnestness to the place the Lord will choose, he may minister in the name of the Lord his God, like all his fellow Levites, who serve there in the presence of the Lord. He is to share equally in their benefits, even though he has received money from the sale of family possessions. The next section is titled Occult Practices. When you enter the land the Lord your God is giving you, do not learn to imitate the detestable ways of the nations there. Let no one be found among you who sacrifices their son or daughter in the fire, who practices divination or sorcery, interprets omens, engages in witchcraft, or casts spells, or who is a medium or spiritist, or who consults the dead. Anyone who does these things is detestable to the Lord. Because of these same detestable practices, the Lord your God will drive out those nations before you. You must be blameless before the Lord your God. The next section is titled The Prophet. The nations you will dispossess. Listen to those who practice sorcery or divination. But as for you, the Lord your God has not permitted you to do so. The Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me. This is Moses speaking. From among you, from your fellow Israelites, you must listen to him, for this is what you asked of the Lord your God at Horeb on the day of the assembly, when you said, Let us not hear the voice of the Lord our God, nor see this great fire any more, or we will die. The Lord said to me, What they say is good. I will raise up for them a prophet, like you from among their fellow Israelites, and I will put my words in his mouth. He will tell them everything I command him. I myself will call to account anyone who does not listen to my words, that the prophet speaks in my name. But a prophet who presumes to speak in my name anything I have not commanded, or a prophet who speaks in the name of other gods, is to be put to death. You may say to yourselves, How can we know when a message has not been spoken by the Lord? If what a prophet proclaims in the name of the Lord does not take place or come true, that is a message the Lord has not spoken. That prophet has spoken presumptuously, so do not be alarmed. Let's go on to Deuteronomy 19. Deuteronomy 19 is the first section is titled Cities of Refuge. When the Lord your God has destroyed the nations whose land he is giving you, and when you have driven them out and settled in their towns and houses, then set aside for yourselves 3 cities in the land the Lord your God is giving you to possess. Determine the distances involved and divide into 3 parts the land the Lord your God is giving you as an inheritance, so that a person who kills someone may flee for refuge to one of these cities. This is the rule concerning anyone who kills a person and flees there for safety. Anyone who kills a neighbor unintentionally, without malice aforethought. For instance, a man may go into the forest with his neighbor to cut wood, and as he swings his axe to fell a tree, the head may fly off and hit his neighbor and kill him. That man may flee to one of these cities and save his life. Otherwise, the avenger of blood might pursue him in a rage, overtake him if the distance is too great, and kill him, even though he is not deserving of death, since he did it to his neighbor without malice aforethought. This is why I command you to set aside for yourselves 3 cities. If the Lord your God enlarges your territory, as he promised on oath to your ancestors, and gives you the whole land he promised them, because you carefully follow all these laws, I command you today to love the Lord your God and to walk always in obedience to him, then you are to set aside 3 more cities. Do this so that innocent blood will not be shed in your land, which the Lord your God is giving you as your inheritance, and so that you will not be guilty of bloodshed. But if out of hate someone lies in wait, assaults, and kills a neighbor, and then flees to one of these cities, the killer shall be sent for by the town elders be brought back to the city and be handed over to the avenger of blood to die. Show no pity. You must purge from Israel the guilt of shedding innocent blood, so that it may go well with you. Do not move your neighbor's boundary stone, set up by your predecessors in the inheritance you receive in the land the Lord your God is giving you to possess. The next section is titled Witnesses. One witness is not enough to convict anyone accused of any crime or offense they may have committed. A matter must be established by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. If a malicious witness takes the stand to accuse someone of a crime, the 2 people involved in the dispute must stand in the presence of the Lord before the priests and the judges who are in office at the time. The judges must make a thorough investigation, and if the witness proves to be a liar, giving false testimony against a fellow Israelite, then do to the false witness as that witness intended to do to the other party. You must purge the evil from among you. The rest of the people will hear of this and be afraid, and never again will such an evil thing be done among you. Show no pity, life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot. Thank you for listening and following along. We are almost through the entire book of Deuteronomy. When we finished Deuteronomy, we would have read, if you have been following all the videos, from Genesis to Deuteronomy, 5 books. These 5 books were all written by Moses. And they are called the first 5 books, or sometimes they call them the Torah. So when we finish Deuteronomy, we could stop there and we could all give ourselves a pat on the back. We read the first 5 books. If you have read the first 5 books, you know a lot about the law. The law given from God, the Lord, from heaven, to Moses, to be given to the Israelites a long time ago. A lot of these laws, the 10 Commandments, they still apply. Most of them. We'll get into that. Thank you for listening. Keep God first and put Him first place. He'll take you places.